surfing every day, very quiet life. Then we'd go for a visa run. We'd go back to Penang. We'd normally get a bus up to Phuket and party in Phuket for 2 weeks. I did that for 10 years. So 88, I first went to Phuket. Yeah, it was a lot different to now. Like in those days, I used to stay in Bangla Road.
You have a really interesting tsunami story.
But my mission was to get some aid and see if I still had a house. There was no communication on this island.
Hey folks, Pete here from thairishtimes. What's the story? Well, I'll tell you what the story is. Today I'm interviewing a gentleman named Willy who left Australia when he was 19 years old. He became a certified sea captain, travelled the world. We're going to get into that. He spent a lot of time in Phuket, Thailand, Indonesia and the Philippines. We're going to ask him some questions about that. And then he's got a really interesting and sad as well story about the 2004 Boxing Day Tsunami, and he was involved in getting aid to an Indonesian island called Simeulue, and he also had a house on that island, and he's going to get into all that stuff as well. So that's what we have today, folks. If you like this interview, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe and leave me a comment. That's the best way you can help this channel out. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get into the interview. Willy, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Pete.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it is. It's good to see you.
Right, so you've lived a really interesting life, and we're going to get into that today. So let's start off with where you're from and talk about your early years, because I know there's an interesting story there.
Yeah, okay, Pete. Yeah, I'm an Aussie. I'm from Sydney originally, just on the northern suburbs of Sydney. And yeah, I grew up in the 70s, raised in the 70s. In those days, the free and easy 70s, I guess. It was a different world to today. I lived very much a beach life, Sydney suburbs. It's a real beach culture. And I had my grandparents live like an hour north of Sydney on the beach as well. So we'd spend weekends there. And I had older brothers into surfing. So, yeah, I was just right into surfing and sports, just like any normal kid in Australia.
And then you left Australia at a young age, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I left at 19. So, like, I had a passion for traveling, like, ever since I was sort of 11, 12, because I'd travel to the beach, I'd hitchhike, I'd catch buses, ferries. So I was traveling a lot. I got my license. I left school when I was 14. I was offered an apprenticeship in a shipyard in Sydney. So yeah, I left school. Like I was always traveling to the beach. My family would, gave me a bit of a free run. Had good parents, but it's not like these days where they're so protective, In the 70s, you're a bit more free. So I'd always travel myself down to the beaches, which was like, an hour or 2 hours sometimes, depends where I was going. So I got used to traveling, and I'd travel up the North Coast by myself. So I had this passion for traveling. And then just following the surfing scene, a lot of surfers went to Bali, of course, because Australians, we loved Bali. So it was my passion to go there. So yeah, when it came to 19, I had a job where I was working. It's more of a seasonal job, work summer, have winter off, working on boats in Sydney. So I decided to buy a ticket to Bali when I was 19. I bought a one-way ticket, headed over there. And my dad, I remember, packing up, I was all excited. And, when you're taking surfboards, surf equipment, I used to take a big bag we call coffins with 2 surfboards in it and all my accessories. So, it took planning to do that. And I was just really excited. I remember my dad saying, "Oh, you'll be home in a week," and I came back 6 months later with a return ticket. So I headed over to Bali, as all Aussies do. And I just loved it. As soon as the plane doors open, as soon as that humidity hit me and the smell, and I was just hooked, I just loved it. I spent 5 weeks there, just riding motorbikes around, surfing all the spots, partying at night, chasing girls, what a 19-year-old would do.
So you're 19, you're in Bali, you're traveling around Asia. Did you go back to Australia? Like, talk us through what you did. Like, what did you do for work when you get into your 20s? Like, what's the story there?
Okay, well, that first trip, I spent 6 months overseas. I went up to Thailand. We went to Koh Samui for a few weeks. And then I went over to neighboring Sumatra, Indonesia. It was just a ferry ride from Penang over to Sumatra. So you'd get a 2 month visa. So I spent 2 months there surfing and just living very cheap in a hut. They'd give us free accommodation if we ate the food at their place. So you could live very cheap, just surfing every day, very quiet life. Then we'd go for a visa run. We'd go back to Penang, and we'd normally get a bus up to Phuket and party in Phuket for 2 weeks. So that was the system I did. I did that for 10 years. So when it came to 6 months of my trip and it was time to go back to Sydney to work again, so I ended up buying in Penang in those days. They had real estate, so they had travel agents, and you could buy a flight. I bought a return flight from Penang, Sydney, back to Penang for like $300 or something. It was crazy. So it was good. So I'd go back home, work, save up enough money. Of course, I was out of the country for 6 months. You get a good tax return, and I just go back and do it all again. So yeah, that was my first year. And when I got home, my dad was surprised. Oh, when are you going to settle down? No, no, I'm going back. you know,
You did that until you were in your, say, late 20s, then early 30s?
yeah, I did that to my 30s. When I was 21, when I gone back to Australia one trip, I thought I've got to have a profession, So I was working on boats. So I went to maritime college and got my captain's certificates. So then I thought, I can travel the world then. I'm a certified captain. So then I did that for 10 years. Basically, I'd go some winters, I'd go and work the summer in Europe, like the French Riviera. I'd pick up jobs here and there. I was a bit, footloose, fancy free, as they say.
Talk us through about Phuket. Are we talking the early 80s? What year are we
No, it
talking?
was 88. So 88, I first went to Phuket.
What was it like
And
back
yeah,
then?
yeah, it was a lot different to now. Like in those days, I used to stay in Bangla Road. I used to stay in like a guest house in Bangla Road and had trees. It's called Jeep Bungalow, Jeep Lane now, Soy Jeep. It's a bar area. But in those days, it was like I've still got a photo of trees and that. And yeah, I really enjoyed it there. Like, because being a surfer as well, you can surf in Phuket. The Thai guys, the local guys were surfing as well. So I became mates with a lot of the local Thai guys from around like Carter Beach, Coron area. All their parents owned the land. And yeah, like there was a party scene as well. Like we used to ride our bikes down the soys and park it in front of the bar and then drink and then ride home type thing. And I was very different to these days. And in those days too, there were no couples. It was all mainly single guys, the odd kinky woman or something would be there, foreigner, but and just nice resorts, really laid back place.
You mentioned that those Thai people that you knew, their parents owned land. Do they still own the land there? Because if they do, they're very, very wealthy.
Yeah, well, they are all very wealthy people. And yeah, a lot of them they leased the land to big resorts. Some of them, a lot of them, they built their own. Well, the family members built their own little hotels, shop houses they rent out. But my friend, I have a friend of mine. He used to come surfing with us in Indonesia. Just a very simple guy. He's a millionaire. Just drives a little Vios. His wife still works for the government, and he's a multimillionaire. Just that's what I love about it. It's great.
He's humble.
Very humble. Yeah.
So I have written down here that you have a really interesting tsunami story.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us that one?
Okay. So, well, I moved to Indonesia full time in the mid '90s. In Sumatra, it's a very big surfing scene. Like there's charter boats that do like 2 week tours around the islands, taking people surfing. So I was doing that, and then I ended up got married. I married a local girl, and I thought, well, I've got to stop going to sea all the time. So we ended up building a resort on this island called Simalu, which is the northern island off Sumatra there. And basically, we built a hotel there, like a surf camp. I was bringing people doing surf tours. So in 2004, Boxing Day, the Boxing Day tsunami, yeah, that's when it hit. And the epicenter was 4 nautical miles north of this island. But all the energy went north. That's went up and hit Banda Aceh, all that coast, and it went across to Phuket. Yeah, and but luckily for me at the time, I was in Australia for Christmas visiting family and saw it on Boxing Day on the news and went straight back there to help. So I was pretty heavily involved in all the aid work after it.
You went back over to Indonesia. You built a house in Indonesia, right?
Yeah, that's right. I built a beach house, but it was like a hotel as well. Yeah, so we flew back into Medan, it's the capital of Sumatra, when all this is unfolding. Like in those days, it's like there was the early days of the internet. So there was the Lonely Planet guidebooks. So my resort was in the guidebook, right? So yeah, next thing I've hit the ground and we're sort of fathoming what's going on and how to get aid out to our island. We had no communication. I could not contact the people there. So anyway, next thing, my phone's ringing and I'm like, yeah, hello, it's Willy. And it's like, hi, I'm the commander of USS, this ship. Can you give us some, details, what's going on the ground? Like, how'd you get my number? Oh, Lonely Planet. Next thing I had CNN calling me. I'm on CNN and it was pretty crazy, but I was trying to get aid together to get out to the island. They're ringing me and ended up talking to them. But my mission was to get some aid and see if I still had a house. There was no communication on this island. So in the end, I got together with a bunch of the surf charter boats in Sumatra and ended up skippering a boat with aid and doctors back up to my island just to get home, and to help. I saw my place was still standing, so I just continued with them. We were doing clinics around the island and just checking all the locals. Luckily, on the island I lived on, it's called Simalu. It's folklore said that if there's a strong earthquake where you can't stand up for 15 minutes, this is really strong earthquake. They said then you just run to the hills. So that's what they did. So only 6 people died on that island. The population's probably only like 20,000 or something, but only 6 people died because they all ran to the hills and watched the tsunami come in. So yeah.
Jeez. Well, very, very lucky. So, like other islands, how bad was Indonesia? Because I mean, we've done a story here on the channel on Thailand and Phuket and Khao Lak, but we've never. This is the first time I'm speaking to someone who's got knowledge about how Indonesia was hit by the tsunami. So, what was it like there?
This is the northern tip of Sumatra. It's called Aceh, right? You got Banda Aceh is the town. So yeah, that was hit a lot worse than Phuket. I can't remember the amount of people who died, but my wife at the time, she lost 40 relatives, like that's how it was. And like I used to stay and surf in this town, and basically 80% of that town were wiped out. Like it's pretty crazy what happened there.
And how long did it take them to rebuild and get their infrastructure back?
Well, yeah, well, see, at the time, see that region, they were at war with Jakarta. They're like a Islamic region, and they wanted independence. So they'd been at war for a decade or so, and so there was a war going on. Excuse me. But with that tsunami, it basically stopped the war, and then all the international aid wanted to come in, and the Indonesian government said, "No, you're not coming in." And they said, "We're going in," because there'd been nothing like this before in the world. So then all the NGOs came to that region, like every country's NGO came up and set up and helped rebuild the place. And I think it took a while. It took about 3-4 years to rebuild. And I ended up getting a job with the United Nations. They formed a shipping service because the progress was very slow to rebuild, to get all the material out to these islands. So I got a job as a port captain, like logistics guy for them. I worked for them for a year. So we were going around to just pulling up into villages and on these landing craft and just giving them all the material to build houses. So it was good how that happened and they got rebuilt again.
And do you still have the house?
Yeah, yeah, it's still there. Still have it. I'm not with my wife anymore, but I left that house for my son. I've got an 18-year-old son in Indonesia, and yeah, so it's a great beach house.
So let's talk about your life now, because you don't live in Thailand. Where do you live?
I was living in Phuket, but I met a Filipina in Phuket. On one of I hired her as a cook on a boat that I was working on. And then one year, I got sick of the Phuket high season. It got too busy, so I used to go traveling around November, December. And she said, "Let's go to the Philippines," where she's from, Cebu. And I'd been there already a few times, and so we ended up going back to Cebu and started having children. So we never left. So yeah, so been living in Cebu for years.
Now, I've never been to the Philippines, but there are a lot of YouTube channels about life in the Philippines, and they cover all sorts of content. So I've often been curious, cost of living compared to Thailand and lifestyle in the Philippines compared to Thailand. Can you tell us about that?
Well, to be honest, I think to rent like decent apartments, it's better in Thailand. You get better quality at a cheaper price. Accommodations expense can be more expensive in the Philippines, but then you got your things like alcohol. Beer is a lot cheaper in the Philippines than Thailand. It's like $1 a beer in the Philippines. You know, but I like the Philippines. It's a nice, relaxed lifestyle where I am. Like we live in a nice housing estate. You've got your gym and your pool and all that. Good schools for my kids. I always wanted to live in Thailand, but my kids have Philippine passports, so difficult for me. But that's why I visit there a lot still. But yeah, this Thailand versus Philippines, everyone talks about it, but it depends what you like. A lot of Americans like the Philippines because they speak the English language a lot more. It's a bit easier to communicate. But I've never had a problem in Thailand. I learned basic Thai so I could get around. I can order food and drinks and stuff like that and greet people. But yeah, it depends what you're looking for. But
How about the
both
visa
places I like.
situation?
Visa is quite easy. You can stay on a tourist visa for up to 3 years. You just keep extending it. So, and if you're married, if you enter with your wife, you get a 1 year visa, or they call it a privilege, not a visa. But you have to enter with your wife. You can get retirement visas. I think it's for a retirement visa. I think you have to be, I think, from 50 years old, and you have to invest, I think, $50,000. You have to put in a bank, but you're allowed to buy a condo with that money if you like. If you're married, you can get a 13A permanent residency as well. So yeah, visa-wise, it's quite easy. But Thailand is getting easier as well. Yeah.
So, but you're not in the Philippines now, right? Where is this call coming from?
No, yeah, I'm right now. I'm in Abu Dhabi. So I still work. I work in the oil and gas industry. I'm quite privileged. I have a job where I work sort of 5 weeks on, 5 weeks off. So I can live in the Philippines and travel over here for work. So yeah, I just travel around Southeast Asia. I don't go back to Australia much. It doesn't do for me much for me these days. But occasionally I'll go back every few years and catch up with family.
So, could you ever see yourself going back to Australia, living there?
Not really. The only reason I'd go back there is for my kids' education. But they have a good education where they are now. They're in top school in the Philippines. So, you know, to be honest, no, I have no plans of living in Australia again.
What's it like working in oil and gas in the Middle East?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's good, nice, secure job. I work on the safety side with ships, but yeah, well, these days, I'm a bit shy to say I work in this industry, because a lot of greenies out there. Everyone's hating oil and gas.
Oh well,
But
Europe is very worried at the moment. The prices are going up and up and up.
oh yeah, true. Yeah, that's it. And I don't want to sort of be political, but everyone thinks that electric cars are the go. But I can't see it. We're going to have a problem in the future as well with that.
Are you working long days over there, like 12 hours and on and 12 hours off, or how's it work?
Yeah, I work. Yeah, we work 12-hour days. Oh, it's summer here at the moment in the Middle East, so they restrict the work hours. So you can only work up until 12 midday, and you've got to have a break till 3 p.m. and then you can work again because it gets so hot here. But summer's just coming to an end at the moment. But yeah, but basically I work 12-hour days. So I do that for 5 weeks straight, and then I get 5 weeks off.
And can you see yourself doing that for the foreseeable future, or is there a plan to maybe retire? I don't know how old you are, but is any like what are your future plans?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I plan to work for like another 6 years and then retire. That's my plan at the moment. Hopefully I can pull that off. So maybe I have to do like you and become a YouTuber.
In the Philippines, is that what you do?
Yeah.
There's loads of content
Uh,
there.
well, I've actually already started a channel. So
Oh yeah,
I've just done a
what's your
few
channel?
travel
Plug your
videos.
channel there.
Yeah, it's called Wanderlust Asia. So wandering around lusting Asia. Wanderlust means you have a passion to travel. And I love
Yeah.
Asia. I've been to Europe as well. I used to work in Europe, and I used to had a bit of a I used to buy surfwear in Bali and take it to England and sell. That was back in the 90s, mid 90s. And so yeah, I've spent time over there.
Was there much
But
money
yeah,
in that? What would you do? You bring it
oh
back and flog it in England?
yeah, at the time, well, back in 97, there was the Asian monetary crisis. I don't know if you know about that. So the whole monetary system crashed, and like we were getting 10 times the money, on the exchange rate. Like I was buying like surfing shorts in Bali for 50 pence and selling them in out of the boot of my car, driving around England, like down in Newquay, for 15 quid a pair. So not a bad
Whoa.
profit. But yeah, I did that for a few years. I tried doing markets. I was used to do markets back in Australia, taking goods from Indonesia and stuff. But to be honest, the government made it hard on just doing that. They bring in licenses and taxing you. So
You never had customs go through your
entrepreneurial,
luggage, did you?
no problem there. Yeah. But like,
Anything
I've
to
tried to be an
declare?
entrepreneur, but I'm just not good I'm not a businessman. I'm better off working for the man. So that's what I do.
So let's talk about, I suppose, what is it about travel for you? I mean, you've definitely lived an unconventional life. You didn't get an office job. You didn't stay in Australia. You ventured out into the world. What is it about travel and you?
Yeah, well, like I said, it came from a young age, just from in my teens, just traveling to get to the beach to go surfing or it's just I think it was just started off from that surfing lifestyle. Like I had an apprenticeship in a shipyard when I was 14. I was offered that, so I left school. I didn't continue to go to university, and then I started just working that 9 to 5 life just didn't suit me, and I just knew it from a quick age. I did my apprenticeship for 2 years, and I was having this was back in the union days in Sydney in Australia, so I was pretty slack. I was averaging 2 sick days a week. And then the boss had a word to me and said, "Look, you can't continue like this." And I said, "Yeah, I know." So we had a mutual agreement that I quit my apprenticeship, but I went to work on boats. I was lucky that my dad had a friend that owned a big shipping company in Sydney, like doing all the tours, Captain Cook Cruises. I plugged them. So I was lucky. They offered me a job, and I went and worked as a deckhand, and that gave me my hours to become a captain. And then it was a seasonal job, and I realized like that suited me. Then I could go traveling for 6 months, work for 6 months, and I'm still doing it today, like 30 years later. I just don't like. I still work for the man, but then I'm a bit more freelance.
And when you were in your 20s and you decided this is what your life was going to be, and you were doing all this, what were your parents saying? Did they agree? Did they support you? Did they disagree?
Yeah, they didn't like it at all. I'll be honest. Like, yeah, my dad, he'd always send me like oh, look at this job you could get. Why don't you get a job as a train driver in Sydney? It pays well. And I'm like, what, train driver? Like, I'm not knocking the job, but I just knew that I'm not a 9 to 5 person. So that's why I sort of created a career for myself where I could travel and work at the same time. A lot of people are doing it. Like I used to go to the south of France and work on the private boats there, the white boats. I was been working in Cyprus. I also got the same job. I did it in Phuket once. A rich family had a big yacht, and I went out to the boat. I said, "Do you need any crew?" Yeah, we do. So then next thing I was sailing off to the Andaman Islands in Africa. Like there's a lot of people that do that these days. Like and Phuket is a good place if you're into boating. There's so many boats in Phuket, so many opportunities.
Any near death experiences, any really dangerous situations on a boat in your life?
I got a call once. It was on New Year's Day about 7 years ago. Oh, can you fly into Malaysia and take this boat to Vietnam? Yeah, okay. We got there, found out that the crew that took it, the Indonesian crew, took it from Batam near Singapore, and they were getting smashed by the waves, the weather and waves, and they went into Terengganu on the east coast of Malaysia. So we found out when we got there, they were all seasick, and they said, "You guys are crazy if you go out there." And myself and another English experienced skipper, we checked the weather. It's not too bad. We got out, and we got the boat across to Vietnam, but we got smashed for 3 days. But we went into Nha Trang, and the owner was so happy we got the boat there. And next thing, it's like champagne's on at the yacht club, and you know, it's that's about the worst I've had. I've been very lucky.
Willie, any regrets in life? If you could do it all again, would you do it differently?
No way. No, no regrets at all.
No?
No, love my life. I'm very, very privileged. So very happy.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you taking the time. Great stories, man. Really good. I really enjoyed listening to you. You lived a very, I suppose, unique life. I wish you all the best.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I've left a lot out. I have got a list here written down of what I'd say, but I forgot half of them. But maybe
Send me
another
the
day.
email, and maybe if well, actually, we'll put it to the comment section if you'd like to hear part two. If Willie has more stuff he wants to say, we can do a part two. We'll leave it to the comment section and see what they say. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no problem.
hit the like button, everybody. Leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel, and Willie, we'll have a beer sometime.
Yeah, love
You
that,
can
Pete.
tell
I'll
me,
see
you
you
can
next time.
regale more of your tales.
See you next time I'm in Thailand. Take care.
Take care, Willie. See you later.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.